My name is Clifton Reese. I grew up in the Bonton community just a long time ago. My mom had two other boys, so it was three of us together, and we grew up in a very poor family. We lived with my grandparents. My dad wasn't around because he was on drugs. He shot heroin, and so that's the reason why my mom and him wasn't together. And so we ended up moving with my grandparents, and with my grandparents, it was like 10 boys in one house. Along with we stayed in like a 4-bedroom house, and it's 10 boys, 5 aunts, and my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather. And I remember, growing up without anything. Growing up in a house where lights was always off, water was off, no food in the house, and we used to eat beans out of cans, corns out of cans, and we used to make do with what we had, and so we was always wearing hand-me-down clothes and things like that, and so one day my mom decided to move out, and we moved out. Man, just were bouncing around from house to house, and man, it was real hard, real rough, because you never could get used to any place you was at. And so, my mom, she was hearing her parents, so it was hard for her to even go out and get work. So we was on welfare most of our life, and well, the whole time I was with my parents until I turned 16. That's when I ended up getting out the house. But before I left the house, it was real rough. My mom ended up meeting a guy. And he used to beat my mom all the time. I'm not ashamed to say it. I used to watch my mom get beat a lot, and I had a lot of envy towards him, I watched my mom get drugged on the back of a truck when I was a young kid, and it hurt me, and it hurt me deeply, where I developed hatred in my heart for my stepdad. Just growing up, I was never taught how to do anything. You can tell a kid anything, but a lot of times we talk about coming a product of our environment. But I despise that. I didn't want to do that, and so growing up in this community, seeing a lot of drugs, violence, murders and things like that around here, it just was. I mean, it was real. It was real rough, And if my mom wouldn't have never moved me out, I'd have been probably one of those guys that been caught up in the drug game and maybe even killed. But my mom ended up moving out of the community, and I ended up moving towards the north, and that's where I was exposed to a whole total different life. And so, I went to school growing up, and I got high all the time, and so. Went to high school, and going through high school, my best friend was murdered when we were 17 years old. He was, I don't know where he was, but he was out one day, and I was out playing basketball, and he was going to dinner with some friends, and I get a call Sunday talking about they had found him. He was shot and killed out of North Dallas, and when he got murdered, it took a lot away from me. That's where my life was. Me and him was so close, and that took my life away from me. And for 6 years, I used that as a crutch of reason why I always acted out and things like that. But it hurt me, to lose somebody that close to me. So my mom and them kicked me out the house when I was 16, 17 years old. It was real bad, even though. I didn't do anything wrong. It would feel like, man, well, you gotta go because you're causing a lot of problems here. Just because her and my stepdad would get along, and me and my stepdad had fist fights and things like that because I was younger, and I told him when I grow up, when I'm old enough to able to protect my mom, you'll never put a hand on her again. And so I just developed a lot of hatred towards him, and so one day we had a big fight, and one day he ended up leaving my mom, and my mom tried to kill herself, and I mean, just to watch my mom go through that hurt and pain, I said, I'd rather leave and not come around than to watch you hurt like this, you know. So it's hard for me to even see my mom today, you know, because, you know, I don't like to cause any tension, you know, but um, I dropped out of school my senior year in high school, you know, and just really just gave up on life and, you know, going in and out of different relationships, sleeping around with different women, got involved in the streets and everything. And so introduced, you know, I've been introduced to drugs all my life, but just really trying to sell drugs. That was the time that I sold a little here. A lot of people didn't know, but, you know, that was something that I did. But that wasn't my life at all. That wasn't me. And so, um, you know, one day I ended up meeting, I was on the train coming from work one day. Um, I ended up meeting my wife, Ciandra, who became, you know, the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. You know, she was going through a whole lot of issues with a guy she was dating, and I was going through issues with a girl I was dating, and me and her became good friends, and we started talking, and one thing led to another. She ended up leaving this guy she was with, and I ended up staying with this girl I was with, but, you know, one thing led to another. Me and her started dating, you know, and I was still doing crazy things, and so she ended up getting pregnant and having a son. You know, that was my first boy. You know, when I met her, she had 3 girls, and, you know, I just fell in love with her kids, you know, and when we had a son together, that just made it even better. I told her I was gonna marry her, and so, man, even though me and her, we turned around and got married back in 2005, and what a blessing that was, and what a bad thing that I did, because even though I got married, I still was doing some stupid stuff in the streets, and so I ended up choosing the streets over my family, and it really hurt our family. And so we just, you know, me and my wife separated like the first year of our marriage, and first year and a half of our marriage or something. So I ended up back in our community back down here in Bunton, and so I ended up losing, you know, everything that I had. And down here, you know, I ended up becoming homeless. I didn't have anything. My clothes were in my wife's house, and me and her didn't talk, so it was like I couldn't go get that. And so I ended up just sleeping in my cousin's car. Call her Crown Victoria. We call her Victoria. So you know, we used to sleep in her all the time, and this was in rain, sleet, you know, snow, whatever, you know. And so man, it was times where I didn't have clothes to wear. I needed to take a shower. Then my cousin let us come over his house and dress. And everywhere I was, one of my cousins, Anthony, he was always with me, and me and him so close today. And we went from a car to an apartment a girl had over in the apartments where she allowed us to sell a little drugs out of it, let us, as long as we pay our rent and things like that. And so you know, I love basketball. You know, I lost a scholarship in high school because of my attitude. I always wanted to fight and had a lot of anger built in me, and so, you know, I'll end up losing that. But when I came to the community, we used to play basketball in the gym on Mondays, and so where God ended up blessing that, you know, he ended up having Reverend Goins come down, and when Reverend Goins came down, we used to always play it. I had this attitude. I always wanted to fight and wanted to do something on the court. And Reverend Goins used to always say, man, you got a bad attitude. And I was like, you know, and it was a lot just going on in my life, and especially me not being home with my wife and my kids, and it was really bothering me. A lot of people in the community didn't know I sold drugs. I mean, they didn't know I sold drugs either, you know, but edit that out, because they knew I sold drugs, but they didn't know I was married. And so I used to run the streets like I wasn't even married. So, you know, I had my ring on. I'm always playing with it. But, you know, my wife, you know, she, you know, never would talk to me or anything. So when we get down here, now everybody at Reverend Goins used to always tell me to go home. But he knew I was married. And so he used to always tell me to go home. And I was like, I wish I could, you know. I used to always drink myself. I think I just wanted to drink my problems away. But that I'm like, but it seems like I got drunk and woke up the morning, and the problem was still there. So drinking wasn't helping, popping ecstasy pills and all that. And so Reverend Goins came down one day and said, "Hey, man, I had a vision of a casket in a wheelchair." And I was like, "Yeah." And we was all sitting there, just looking at him. And he laid his obituaries out, and he said, "Man, choose this day who you gonna serve. You want to live or do you want to die?" And he said, "For me and my house, I'm gonna serve the Lord." And I was like, man. And I was looking around, see who gonna raise their hand. And I just raised my hand because I done tried so many things in my life, and I made deals with God. God, did you just help me? I knew how to ask him for things, to get me out of situations, but to really just give my life to him, to really say, "Hey, I want you to take root in my life." I never did that. And so I was like, man, I wanted to try this, try something new. And so I ended up giving my life to Christ that Monday night, and we was all sitting in a room where we ended up meeting Mike Feshner with Bridge Builders, and a lot of more guys from Prestonwood, Michael Jr., Josh Roth, and a lot of those guys. And it was like, man, so different. It was so different, and Mike Jr. used to always come down on weekends in the summer. Me and him became real close friends. First, he was my mentor, just come down and get me, and we just go get in the Word a little bit, And so one thing led to another, man. We used to always pray about me going home to my wife, and me and Michael just do it all. I just started growing in my faith with God. I used to go to church every Sunday, but I used to go to church high all the time. I was still getting high, even though I gave my life to Christ. And one night, man, just something, it had to be the Spirit now that I know, it had to be God to sit up here and say I was going to die, and I was like, he showed me a glimpse of my wife and children one night, and that was the night that I stopped getting high, because I had gave my life to Christ, but I didn't give my heart to him. That was the night I opened my heart to Christ, man. And I went home and I just fell down and I wept the whole night. And my life started to change after that. I started meeting different people. Went back to school, got my GED. Went through the optical training class that Bridge Builders had provided for us down here, and went through there. Graduated from it. Went and worked with I was working at nights, and I used to always pray to go home with my wife, and went to visit my wife one night, and my wife ended up saying, "Hey, go to the movies with us." And I was like, because if I wouldn't have never went to the movies that night, I was trying to find something to get into, and she had ended up saying, "No, you come home with me." And so I was like, "Okay, cool." And so we went to the movies, and after the movies, we came back to the house, and she was like, "Hey, you stay the night with me." And I was like, "What?" No. She was like, "No, stay the night with me." And so from that point on, me and her been back together ever since, and I seen how just through me praying and having a lot of my people that said they loved me and really cared about my life really pray. You had Mike and things like that, and Michael Jr. But just to have those guys really show their love for me and pray for me, and God restore my marriage. And so Mike came to me and said, "Hey, I was working nights and I was volunteering for Bridge Builders, and I started, coming on." He said, "We offer you a full-time position in the ministry. Would you leave your night job and go home to your wife?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do that anytime." But I was like, this money was looking so good, I didn't really want to do that. And so I kept both jobs, and I seen myself getting away from my walk with Christ and everything. And I asked God, if this night job is not for me, you take it away from me. And he was like, "I promise you, the next day, they tried to suspend me." And I said, "That's okay. I know this guy telling me his time is done with you guys." And so I just turned my badge in, and I left, And so and just through that, God had ended up providing a way. We ain't never had our own house, and so God ended up providing a way where we could, went through the Habitat program, and got a house built in Bonton, the same community that I slept in the car in, ran the streets, and did a lot of rough things in with my family and things like that. And so it was really a blessing to see what God has done. Man, I managed the eye clinic for the last few years. I've been with the ministry, and when Darren came down to the community, it was like, man, I was like, I want to be in the community, man. I want to walk alongside somebody like you to enhance the things that God already gifted me with. Me knowing, man, just to see the things that you do, and to see the gardening, the aquaponic system, and things like that has been amazing to see. And so God ended up opening the door for me leaving the eye clinic and coming down to the community and serving in the community with Darren and the community team. And so that has been a blessing. And while we've been down here, we've been having family gatherings, Bible study on Wednesdays at Darren's house, and it's just been like a tremendous blessing to see the people that come down in the community that's been a part of it. My uncle who spent 28 years in prison getting out, and me and him reuniting, and him coming down now. His heart is this community. It has always been his heart. And to him to come down and be a part of the Bible study has been awesome. Man, and just to see then Nathan coming down and talking about he wanted to start a company, to be a competitor to him, to help provide jobs in the community for the guys down here. And so it was 7 of us, there's 6 of us now. And so, man, it's been a great blessing. And it's been a journey serving in the ministry to see when God has brought me from 8 years ago and being a part of this ministry, going on 9 now, just being a part of this ministry, and it's a very emotional time for me in my life, but it's also a blessed time for me in my life because I'm about to go intern at Nature Nate's Honey Company to be an apprentice to him, to where I can learn a honey business, to where a year from now I can branch off and run Bunton Honey Company full time, and to lead a ministry as an employee, has been not being able to see my brothers and sisters daily like I normally would do. Now I'm gonna be going out and serving, in McKinney and Nature Nate's for this next year, 15 months, something like that, and to really help bring restoration to this community through jobs, because that's one thing that a lot of people down here need, and this great opportunity to be able to do it. Like I said, it's very emotional for me, and it's also a blessing for my family, because who knows what's going to happen through it all, if it's going to be successful or not. But I'm trusting God to get us through all this. My wife is excited about it. I got a lot of everybody that's around me is very excited, and just to see people like Darius, Carey, Willie Charles and those guys, Roderick, and just all those guys, it's just been an amazing thing for me to be able to go out here and do this, because I'm not doing this for us. I'm doing it for generations to come, because our children will one day be able to tell their children, and their children be able to tell their children, look what my dad's started, and we can sit up here, and I got a Darius who got a nephew who's, man, I love so much, one day for him, God just to bless him and heal him, and him to one day see what the work that we put in, that I pray that it don't go in vain. And I pray that we seek God and we give God all the things that we need, all the things that's in us, that he can give us all the things that we need to accomplish the mission that he set us out to do. So, that's a lot of things that's going on with me, and I just praise God. Like for you, Andy, and Michael, just, man, you guys has been a tremendous blessing. I know Darren and them love you guys, and I love y'all, just to see y'all all the time, and just to think about y'all all the time, man. It's been a tremendous journey. So that's it.